Hello, today I'm going to show you how to make touch buttons. It has been an issue in the Unreal Engine community because it's not really clear on how to implement touch buttons. So I'm just going to jump right into it, and I will show you how to make jump buttons. So I will be using widget blueprint. I'll be using widgets for the touch buttons. So what you're going to need is textures for the buttons. So yeah, I have the textures here. This one's just A with the transparency behind it, B with the transparency behind it. So we are going to be using those two buttons, A and B. So you can use any textures that you want. And another thing you'll need is your player character. So in my player character, there's the WASD movement, which we managed to tackle that in the other previous touch tutorial. There's the mouse movement, which also did that in the touch tutorial, the previous touch tutorial. So today we are going to do jumping through touch screen. So for you to do this, we are going to create a widget blueprint. So just right click and go to user interface, widget blueprint, just select it and just call this say something like touch button, and we're going to go direct and open it. So we'll need a button. So this is our canvas panel, and we will need a button. Go here to palette and just drag a button into the screen. So if you had not created the texture before, you can just shape it to the size you want relative to the screen. So this one is too big, like that. And then you take the size here under details, size X and size Y. So you take the size and make a texture of the same size, okay? But because we had already made textures prior before this, we are forced to use the texture size. We're forced to make the button the same size. So under our textures, let's just open it. It's 250 by 250. So we are going to use that. We're going to set the button to 250 by 250, and I'm going to show you the reason why you have to use the same your button has to be the same size as your image. So let's give the button a meaningful name. Let's just call it A button, A_ button, so that we know. And just wait a minute, it's saving. Yeah. So here under appearance, we are going to take the texture. Here under style, under normal, we're just going to take our A texture, A button texture, like that. And we're going to go to hovered, and we're going to set the same texture. And under pressed, we're going to set the same texture. Okay, so we have our button here with the texture. So here under style, normal, it just shows you here you define how the button will look when it's normal, when it has not been pressed. So we're just going to have a transparency of 0.5. So for people who are using mouse, for maybe let's say computer, they're playing on PC, when the mouse is over the button, under hovered here, you just dictate how you want the button to look like when the mouse is hovered over the button. So because we are using touch, it's impossible to hover your finger on top of a button on a touch screen. So we're just going to set that value to 0.5, just like the other one. But under pressed, we want the user to know that he has pressed the button. So we are going to just leave it at 1, okay, like that. Another thing, just by selecting the button, we just anchor it to the corner so that it stays relative to that corner. So even if the screen scales, it will just stay relative to that corner in the same position. So I want to show you why this 250 by 250 is very important. If you'll see, if I try to resize, the image somehow becomes warped or something like that, so it won't look very well. So you just have to use the same size as the texture, 250 by 250. So we are setting the button the same size as the texture, like that. So this will be our first button. With this button, we want, when we press A, we jump. Okay, so when we press A, no, let's just use B so that we jump. Yeah, like that, B, because B looks like an option here. So that's what we want. When you press B, I've just changed the texture, nothing else. So when you press B, we are going to jump. So that's it. So we are going to go under our graph side, and just going to delete all this. Let's just go back again to our designer. I'm sorry for that. And when you are with the B button selected, just go to on events, then say on pressed. So on pressed, we want to cast to our character. So what is our character? Our character is named base character here. That's the name of our character, base character. So that's what we are going to cast to. Just going to say, like, I'm sorry for that. Just going to say cast to base character. Cast to base character, like that. And the object here, just say player character. And as base character, now that we have cast to base character, the widget now becomes the base character. We are going to access jump, like that. So we are going to access it. Just type jump. So what we're just telling the computer, let's just change the name of this button. We had called it A button, let's just call it B button, like that. So what you're just telling it, on pressing of B button, jump. What do you want to jump? The base character. That's just it. So if you try to test it out, let me go on the. So for the widget to show on screen, you have to create it. So what you're just going to say is just begin play on event, begin play, create widget. Which widget are we going to use? We are going to use our widget, which is touch button, and we are going to promote this to a variable. Let's just call it widget BP, and we're just going to add it to viewport. Simple like that. So when you hit play, it should be on screen. Okay, so let's try and test our button. You see, when I press B, jump. And I'm going to show you that we're just going to remove the input action, so that there's no way I can jump using a button. And you can see there's no other button, there's no other input for jumping. It's totally disconnected. So when I press space, I hope you can listen, I'm not jumping. But when I use the mouse, which will be our hand when we are using a touch screen, you jump, just like that. Okay, another second thing, you might want a toggling effect, something, let's say like a scope, and you want to aim, you want to toggle between aiming and just shooting. So that's just like toggling. So what you're going to do, we're just going to create another button and explore this idea of toggling, how to make a toggling button. Where is the other button? Paste. No, paste. Where's the other button? Okay, it's here. So let's just give this button a meaningful name. We just call it a button, a underscore button. So I've just copied and pasted the same button. So we are going to change the texture. We're going to use the a texture. I'm just reciting the texture again. So yes, and now we want to toggle. So let's first define what we want to toggle in our character. So our character has a camera which it's our first person camera. So when you select it under details and the camera settings, you can see projection mode. Here is perspective. You can change it to orthographic. So we want to access this variable, which is projection mode. We're just going to access it and change it during runtime. So what we are going to do is, when selecting it, we're just going to go into our event graph, and we're just going to drag it like this and just say projection mode. Okay, let me just find a space like this. So we are going to make a custom event. A custom event is just simply event which we are making custom. So custom event, let's just call this choice 1, or let's just call it just option 1, and let's call this option 2, like that. So let's duplicate these two. So on option 1, when option 1 is selected, it will change our camera projection mode to orthographic. On option 2, it will change our camera back to perspective, just like that. Okay, so when you go to touch button, I will go to our touch widget blueprint. We're just going to say like we're just going to go down to our events, and on pressed, we're going to say we're just going to use the same process. On pressed, a button cast to our base character, like that, and we are now going to access these custom events through our widget blueprint. So on pressed a button, we want to sorry for that, I just made a mistake. We first have to put a flip-flop. Flip-flop is just like a switch. It will switch between these two every time a button is pressed. So when you press it for the first time, it will do A. When you press it for the second time, it will do B. When you press it for the third time, it will do A, and you press it for the fourth time, it will do B, and onwards. So that's what we are going to use, and yeah. So what we are just telling our computer, our Unreal Engine, is that when the player presses a button, it will execute the first command, which is choice option 1 here. So just going to say option 1, and you can see it has already appeared, and the second one is going to be option 2, just like that, and it is done. So let's make sure it's anchored. Yes, it's anchored. So when you play, let me enlarge it. You can see our camera is in orthographic projection. When you press it again, it comes back to perspective. Okay, so that's toggling. So maybe you can use this in your game, like maybe you have a first person shooter game where you want your character to switch from aiming to just hip shooting. You can use that. So that's just it. So the last button is going to be a tick button. A tick button is just like a button that will work like every second. It's just continuous and until you stop. So it just registers a click until you stop pressing it. So let's just copy this, copy and paste. Where is it? So let's just remove this. So it has no texture, but this one is suitable for maybe, like, let's say a shooter game, like you are shooting a machine gun, so you want your button to sense touch continuously. So what you're going to do is go on pressed. You're going to create two events on pressed, okay, and create another button on released, okay, and we are going to create another variable called pressed question mark. Let's like that. So we're going to create an event called event tick. So we're going to run a branch, and we are going to check the validity of pressed, the bool. So because pressed is a boolean type, we are going to see if is pressed true or false. So leave that at that. So when you press the pressed boolean, we are going to set it to true, and when we release, we are going to set our pressed boolean to false, like that, okay, and that's just it. So let's just save. So we have not finished this one first, so let's just go back to our base character. So for this, because we don't have a gun, we're just going to print text on our screen. We're going to say create a custom event. We're going to create a custom event and then call it shoot, and shoot will print as a string. So let's say print string, and it will type shooting, like that. So when shoot is called, it will just print a string on our screen that we are shooting. A string is just like a sentence, a word, for those people who don't know. So we are back to our widget blueprint. So on every tick, we are going to check if our button is pressed. So if it is true, it has been pressed, we are simply going to cast to our base character, like that, and we are going to access shoot, like that. Compile. Don't know why it keeps doing this all the time. All the time. So let me see what's wrong. call this so name shooting. Will that work? This is not the first time I'm doing this, and it just keeps making an error. Let's say shooting. Just a minute here. Yes, if I change the sentence to shooting, it works. So if I change I've changed the name of the variable of the custom event to shooting. So yes, so on every tick, let me explain this. Every tick is just like every frame. It checks if the pressed button, if the pressed boolean is true or false. And how do we set our pressed boolean? We are setting it with on pressed events on our button. So when our button is pressed, it sets the pressed boolean to true. When our button is released, it sets our pressed boolean to false. And then this just checks our pressed boolean. If it is true, it is going to cast to our base character, and it's going to execute the shoot custom event. If it's false, nothing is going to be done. Okay, so like that. So if we press play, I think it should work, and you can see it's working. So some people might not be sure if this is working on a phone. It's working, but if you're using a touch, if you're making a mobile game, you do not want to use this widget blueprint. You do not want to make health bar on your widget, on your touch widget blueprint. In Unreal Engine, you can layer two widgets together on top of each other. So just leave this touch button widget blueprint, this widget blueprint on itself, and you can just make a separate health widget blueprint. So you just layer on top of each other. So it's not really advisable if you just go on to add health bar, life, whip, armor and stuff. Yes, you can do it, but I will not. If it's me, I will not do something like that. So you can just layer those two. So you can just go to you can just go here and create also another one, create another widget blueprint. Okay, so you can layer widgets on top of each other. So just leave this one to be as the background, and you can just layer other widgets on top of it. So I hope this helps you to make your project in your project, and be sure to leave a comment, like, and most importantly subscribe. You're going to help me out a great deal, and thank you very much for watching this video.